Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today we are jumping back into the basics and fundamentals of makeup, and what better way to kick that off than with the tools we use to apply our makeup, specifically the brushes and tools we use to create the eye makeup looks that we want to wear. If you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is Zach. I am a makeup artist and medical esthetician based in Toronto, Canada, and I have been working in the beauty industry for over 10 years now. And here on my YouTube channel, I like making makeup simple and easy because makeup should be fun and easy. That sounds interesting. Let's get right into this video. When I was thinking about which brushes would I suggest to new makeup beginners or anyone who's just unsure what brushes to choose for what they want to achieve, because sometimes when you're looking through Instagram or YouTube, you'll see some different creators and they'll use a ton of different brushes, and I don't know about you, but for me that can feel very overwhelming. Today I narrowed it down to 5 brushes, and then I've got 2 little bonus tools. I worked as a retail and freelance makeup artist for over 10 years, and I have had a lot of brushes come and go from my collection. Even though now I'm only doing makeup on social media, I still have a lot of brushes. So this is something that I found on Amazon, and I think it's made for pencils, but I love it for makeup brushes. These are all of my makeup brushes except for 2 I have off to the side, which are drying because I just washed them. Over here are blenders. Over here are brushes I can use to pack on color or do some fine work. Over here with the blenders, they're all dome-shaped blenders. Some are more petite, some are larger, some are those in-between sizes, some are more of a rounded tip, some come more to a pointed tip. When choosing a size or a shape, you really need to look at the effect you're trying to achieve and how much space that you have. The 5 brushes I chose today, they are what I like best for me and my eye shape. My lid space is relatively small because I do have hooded eyes that are slightly downturned, so larger brushes tend to overpower my eyes. But if you're someone with a larger eye, you have more space from lash to brow, you don't have a hooded eye, or the skin is just nice and tight around the eye area, you might do better with larger brushes. For step 1, I always like to have some type of flat packing brush. This is the Hourglass number 3. This is a synthetic brush, and this is one of the larger ones I'll go for, but I like this because this size allows me just to tap over my eyelid and wash over that base color, whether it's a pressed powder, an eyeshadow, whatever I'm using to create my base, I will use something like this. If I'm going for a less precise makeup where I want a lighter touch, I'll use the side or the belly of a blending brush, pack on shadow too. You can create a similar effect with a blending brush on its side as you would with a flat packing brush. Biggest difference is this is fluffy. This is made more so to blend and diffuse product, where this is flat. This is made to put down and lay down denser washes of color. So this will give you more color payoff or more opacity than this will. But if you're someone who wants to limit the number of steps you have, you can take a blending brush, use it on the side, and you wouldn't need to use a flat packing brush. You would just have to build up a little bit more. I did mention that this brush is synthetic, and synthetic versus natural hair, it's an interesting topic. Some people are anti-natural hair brushes or brushes made from animal fiber, and they only like to use synthetic. For me, I like a mix of natural and synthetic brushes. That being said, I can create similar looks using all synthetic brushes. I like natural hair products for more dense products, like think about your baked gelée powders, or anytime I've got more of like something like a shimmer shade, something that I need to pick up a little bit more, or something I need to almost scratch the surface of to pick up, that is when I like to use a natural hair brush. If you think about a natural hair brush, the actual strand or shaft of the hair of the brush, that is going to be an animal hair. Animal hair is like our hair. It has different layers. On the outermost layer, you have a cuticle, which is more rough. It's going to allow it to kind of grab onto product a little bit more. Whereas a synthetic or a man-made fiber, it is a completely smooth shaft from tip to the base. And that is going to allow a smoother wash. When working with something like a cream product, I prefer using synthetic brush. brush because they're easier to clean up, and that synthetic material allows it to glide over the eye. You can use a natural fiber brush for that. I just find they do better with your glitters, shimmers, and baked chalet products, something that needs a little bit more kind of grip to pick up. The next 3 of my 5 brushes are all iterations of the same brush. However, they all have different purposes within my makeup collection, and I would suggest having a few different shapes and sizes in your collection to help you with some different looks. These are all your standard blending brush. I have a BK Beauty number 201 synthetic brush. It is a larger, more kind of dome shaped point to the bundle. Then you'll have something like the Morphe M330, which is going to be a little bit more petite, but you can see it also comes more to a point, whereas this BK Beauty one comes more to a rounded shape. And then lastly, I have the Hourglass number 20. This is a natural hair brush, and you can see it also has a dome shape, but when compared to the BK Beauty or the Morphe, it is much smaller. It's gonna allow me to get into tighter places. It's gonna allow me to add on more concentrated color right where I want it. So what would I use these 3 different brushes for? This one by BK Beauty, it's a large brush shape. It's a little too big. I can make it work in my socket line, but for precision that I like, it's a little too fluffy. For me, I like having something like this. This is going to be like my magic eraser. This is a brush I primarily like to keep clean and free of product. So after every step, I always like to take a brush like this and no product on it and go just around the edges. If I'm applying a color to the socket or the crease of my eye, I can go on the edge and just soften it. This is great for helping to diffuse product. If you get too much product, like say for instance, you're building up your outer corner, became a little too intense, you can take a brush like this, clean, free of product, place it right on that edge and just softly massage it in using little tiny circular buffing motions with a light pressure. That's why I like to hold brushes lower down. It's going to give you less pressure, and you can massage and move product out, spread it out, diffuse it, clean up any little boo-boos you might make. Moving into the Morphe M330, also considered a blending brush, and something like this has more of a point. When I'm working with a brush like this pointed shape allows me to use a light pressure and really focus on the very, very pointer tip of the brush. That way, if I'm working like say for instance in my socket where my eye is more hooded and downturned, I like to work on creating a visual interest in this outer corner to create lift, to fool the eye that my eye is going up instead of down. Using a small point like this, I can just very gently, the brush will almost look like it's not even moving. You can just massage right here in this outer corner and then taper it back in. That will help achieve a very soft look. And then you can use the brush again with a little bit more pressure, deposit a little bit more product, and build up to the intensity that you want. I always like to start with a light hand and then build up, because if you apply too much pressure, you get too much product. It's really hard to soften that down. A lot of times you'll have to remove it and start over, and sometimes that happens. It's inevitable, but when you can control it, I like to use soft motions and build up slowly. That will also help you get a more perfected look. Pairing this Hourglass number 20 brush to the Morphe M330, it's much smaller, but it's more rounded where the Morphe was pointed, and compared to the BK Beauty, these are both rounded, but much, much smaller. A brush like this is great, once again, for anytime you're working with precision color. Say for instance out here, I always like to take a little bit of a darker color, almost like a color you would use for a liner, and then use a brush like this just to very, very gently kind of sketch on the shape, and then you can use it to diffuse. Or if you apply an eyeliner that's a little too intense, you can take a brush like this and just gently massage over it to soften up any of your lines. Since this is also smaller, this is also great for getting right under the lower lash line, adding that nice kind of haziness. Or if you apply something under here and maybe it feels like it's dragging the eye down, you can take a small brush like this and just gently nudge it upwards to help give you that more lifted effect. The final brush I like to keep on hand is a small detail brush. This is by Laura Mercier. This is a flat eyeliner brush. I like a brush like this, or using things like eyeliner. I can take it, I can wiggle in between my lashes from going above, I can go lower. If I want to get a really precise line and maybe my hand's not feeling the most steady with a pencil or a shadow, I can take a brush like this, work under my lower lash line. Or You could use a brush like this to fill in your brows. I find brushes like this and the more angled brushes, those are quite interchangeable. It really depends on what shape you want to work with. Also, little brushes like these are great if you ever make a mistake elsewhere on your face. One of my favorite tricks when I was a freelance makeup artist is I would always keep a brush like this clean and keep it with my concealers, because say for instance you're doing a bold lip like a red and you get a little bit outside the edge, it can kind of throw the whole look off. You can use a little brush like this just to clean up any edges. Very handy brush to have in your collection. So to summarize, the 5 brushes I suggest for makeup newcomers or anyone who wants to simplify or just wants to kind of streamline the brushes they're using. Something a little bit larger that you can pack on and lay down shadows. A large fluffy blending brush that you could either use on its side to lay down an all over color or use it as your eraser to go through, soften up your edges, clean up any little mistakes, diffuse, smoke out things. A secondary blending brush, maybe one with a little bit more of a pointed tip that will allow you to get a little bit more detail, a little bit more precision to help you create the shapes or effects you're going for. Having a very small blender or a pencil brush that will allow you to do really targeted detail or do really fine blending. And then having more of a detailed or a liner brush. This will help you line, correct small details that you can correct and finesse. When you're getting into more kind of detailed makeup looks, you might need to build on to this kind of fundamental collection, because some looks, like if you want to do a really precise cut crease, you could technically use a brush like this to go through and clean up that edge. But I find something like this to be a little too large. That's when you want to go down to something smaller and even a little bit more flat, because the more flat a brush like this is, it's going to be a little bit stiffer. It's going to allow you to get more precision when you're trying to sketch and trace something out. If you're gonna use like a glitter or a shimmer and you want to get somewhere really precise, using something like this that's a little bit smaller is gonna allow you to maybe just place the product where you want it, right here on the inner corner, or just tightly press it on the lower lash line, or even highlight your brow bone. The brush needs to be accommodated to the size of the area that you're working with. That being said, like you were seeing me, you could use a brush like this, just get it just on the very point of the brush, place it where you need it, turn it up, use it to create a smudgy line under the eyes. You can use it with a light hand and tilt it a little bit more. That way it's more working with just the point of the brush to go through and sketch out a socket line if you want to do something like a cut crease. My add-on tools for creating a beautiful eye look are completely optional, and they're more so for lashes. I like having a lash comb. Now, you can either use something like this. This is just a metal comb I picked up when I was at Ulta. This is from Tweezerman, but you can use something like this to get any kind of clumps or lumps out of your mascara, and you can even use it for the brows. If you're gonna use it for brows, I would say be careful. For that, a spoolie is a little bit easier, or a clean mascara wand, because something like this, if you're using too much pressure, it can scratch the brows, but it's phenomenal for separating your lashes. And the final tool is a lash curler. Not everyone likes to use a lash curler. I have tried several. Here I have all 4 of the ones I have in my collection, and I go for the same one over and over, and that is my Releve Lash Curler from Surat. This is more expensive than the other options I have, but for me, this is the best shape for my eye. If we look at the classic Shuamura versus my Surat, the Shuamura has more of a roundness to it, where the Surat is a little bit flatter. If you're someone who has a more round eye shape, or your eye is slightly coming more forward, you might like something like the Shuamura, where my eye is a little bit more kind of flat. There's not a lot of visible roundness to it. This works better for me. If you find something like the Shuamura isn't quite round enough, you might like the Refer. The Refer is a little too round for my eye shape. I can make it work, but with something like this where it has such a strong kind of C curve to it, I need to work my lashes in sections or it pinches me really badly. And this is a no-name I picked up one time on vacation when I forgot my lash curler. Not a fan of it. I don't know why I hang on to it. So those are all of the tools and little tricks on how to use each of them to build your perfect makeup starter set, or to consolidate the brushes you have that if you want to kind of do a more minimalistic approach with your makeup tools. When it comes to playing with makeup brushes, I didn't want to stress too much on which brands I use because there are so many different brands. Even within my own collection, I have everything from luxury to more affordable. Luxury brands tend to do really well with more of this natural hair fibers, and then you'll have some affordable brands who do really wonderful synthetic brushes like Real Techniques, Elf, Morphe. They have some really wonderful brushes that you might be fooled to think they might be a natural hair brush. But when choosing a brush, it really comes down to your personal preference, how the brush feels in your hand, and how it flows. For me, I don't like overly soft, overly flimsy brushes. I like something that's going to bounce back to the center, because since I like to work with a softer hand, if a brush is too soft, it's not going to do what I need it to. I like brushes that have a little bit of a stiffness. That way, when I'm using a light hand, it's going to still give me that drag I need. So when you're looking for a brush, I really suggest trying to touch it or find a creator or someone that you trust and you generally agree with their opinions when you're looking for a brush here online. If you found this helpful and informative, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and share it with a friend who needs help with their makeup brushes. Up next, we are going to be looking at brushes for face. So I will see you all there. Bye, y'all.